So I want you to picture a typical Tuesday morning inside a growing Australian business.
Right, a scene we've all probably lived through.
Oh, absolutely. It is playing out in corporate offices right across the country as we speak. So you've got this brilliant finance manager, right? Someone you pay a premium salary to. And they're just sitting at their desk, literally copy-pasting invoice details from an accounting platform.
Into some massive, unmanageable Excel spreadsheet.
Exactly. And why? Because the two systems, they've just never been officially connected.
And, I mean, if you walk down the hall, you're going to see the exact same thing happening in operations.
You've got an operations lead manually pulling last week's performance data from, like, 3 completely different databases just to compile a single weekly report.
Which probably eats up 2 solid hours of their morning.
At least. And they're going to have to do it all over again next Tuesday. Meanwhile, out in the warehouse, a logistics coordinator is, re-entering order data by hand because the central enterprise software just flat out refuses to talk to the dispatch system.
The crucial thing to understand here, though, is that none of these professionals are doing their jobs poorly.
No, not at all.
Right. They are doing exactly what their current tech stack forces them to do. I mean, it's the architecture that is failing them, not their work ethic.
The systems are broken, not the people. So, with that scenario in mind, a huge welcome to our C9 followers tuning in from the business page, and a very special welcome to the Australian business owners and C-level executives joining us today. I'm Lex.
And I'm Vera. Welcome to the C9 podcast show.
Today, we are taking a deep dive into a phenomenon that is quietly making or breaking companies across the country right now. It's called the Australian integration edge.
It's such a massive topic.
It really is. Our mission today is to unpack exactly how Australian businesses are losing just billions of dollars to manual processes. And more importantly, how custom software, automation, and really precise integration can turn that operational bleed into serious structural growth.
Because when you zoom out from that Tuesday morning scenario and look at the macroeconomic reality, we are dealing with a staggering paradox.
Yeah, that's what I want to ask you about first, because from a macro level, it kind of feels like businesses are running in quicksand. Like, we are buying more software than ever, but operations feel slower. What is actually happening in the market?
Well, the numbers explain exactly why it feels that way. The digital transformation market in Australia reached $18.5 billion in 2024.
Wow.
Right. And it is projected to explode to $84.7 billion by 2033.
That is just a wide amount of money.
It is. To put that in perspective, Australian businesses spent an estimated 3.5 billion Australian dollars just on AI and automation-related initiatives in 2024 alone. But here is the massive irony, right? Companies are spending absolute fortunes on technology, and what they're actually ending up with is a sprawl of disconnected platforms.
So let me get this straight. We are buying highly specialized software to solve specific problems, but because they don't natively talk to each other, we're just creating new bottlenecks.
Precisely. Analysts actually call this the integration gap.
The integration gap. Okay.
Yeah, it's this silent operational and financial tax that you pay for systems that cannot communicate. You have this incredible national investment, but without a deliberate underlying integration strategy, deploying a new piece of software just adds a new silo.
So they just sit there on your servers.
Exactly. The platforms sit side by side, and your human staff are essentially forced to act as the digital glue holding them together.
I always think of it like this. Imagine hiring a team of elite, highly specialized, 6-figure executives for your company.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Right, but they all speak completely different languages and just refuse to learn a common tongue. And to make matters worse, to get them to collaborate, you rely on a single exhausted intern to sprint back and forth between their corner offices, translating and retyping every single memo by hand.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it.
Right, that is exactly what these disconnected systems are doing to your workforce.
And that exhausted intern represents the 5 most expensive manual processes dragging down Australian businesses today.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, you have manual data reentry. So literally typing the same customer data into both your CRM and your finance system.
The classic double handling.
Exactly. Second is manual report compilation, which pretty much guarantees your data is already out of date before it even reaches a C-level desk.
Oh, for sure.
Third is manual approvals, the ones getting buried in endless email chains. Fourth is manual file transfers, which, as we'll see in a minute, is a massive risk in regulated sectors.
Oh, yeah. Sending spreadsheets around is terrifying.
It really is.
Yeah.
And finally, manual reconciliation across disparate ledgers. That doesn't just take time, it actively generates compounding human errors.
The financial weight of that exhausted intern is just massive. I was looking at this McKinsey research, and it points out that automation can slash operational cost by up to 30%.
30% is huge for the bottom line.
It's game-changing. They also found that nearly 60% of all business occupations contain tasks where at least one-third of the daily work could be fully automated with the tech we already have today.
It's all just sitting there waiting to be optimized.
Exactly. And if you actually commit to fixing this, 48% of businesses report a positive ROI within just 12 months. Plus, you see like a 70% drop in errors when you remove the human element for the data transfer.
What's fascinating to me is that for C-level executives, this isn't really a technology problem anymore.
What do you mean?
Well, the question isn't, is it theoretically possible to connect these systems? We know it is. It is a strategy and architecture problem. It's about understanding the difference between buying generic connectivity and engineering true precision integration.
Okay, let me stop you there, because that's the obvious objection, right? If the cost of this integration gap is so universally high, why don't businesses just buy an off-the-shelf integration tool?
You mean the low-code stuff?
Yeah, pay $20 a month for a low-code connector, hook the two platforms together, and just call it a day. Why doesn't that work?
Because off-the-shelf tools work perfectly fine for standard low-stakes workflows, like sending an automated Slack message when a web form is filled out.
Right, simple stuff.
Simple stuff. But when you are dealing with regulated industries, massive legacy infrastructure, or really heavy operational complexity, those generic tools just shatter under pressure. And the regulatory pressure in Australia has quite literally never been higher.
Yeah, the legal landscape has shifted dramatically over the last few years.
Drastically.
Yeah.
Take the Privacy Act 1988 amendments that came into effect in late 2024. The maximum penalties for serious or repeated privacy contraventions can now reach up to 50 million Australian dollars.
50 million, wow.
Or 30% of an organization's adjusted turnover, whichever is greater. So if your business is moving customer data, patient records, or financial information using manual file transfers or generic, unsecured connectors.
They're playing with fire.
Exactly. Compliance is no longer just an IT checklist item. It is a strict make-or-break architectural requirement.
And if we look at the healthcare sector, it's even more rigorous. The National Healthcare Interoperability Plan is actively mandating HL7 FHIR standards for clinical data exchange.
Yes, which is a massive shift.
Right, and that brings up this incredible case study from the sources about health. We're talking about GP to specialist referrals here. For years, this process relied on manual faxes, phone calls, and unsecured emails.
Which is just...
I mean, from a privacy and clinical standpoint, that's just terrifying.
It's an immense clinical risk.
Yeah.
A dropped fax or, an email sent to the wrong inbox means a patient might miss critical care.
Literally life or death.
Literally.
Yeah.
So health was dealing with this highly fragmented manual workflow. A referral sent from a general practitioner system had to be manually read and then re-entered into the specialist platform.
Back to the exhausted intern.
Exactly. There was no reliable tracking, no auditable trail to prove a document was received. But they had a massive constraint. They couldn't just rip out the legacy clinical information systems that the GPs have been using for decades.
Okay, before we talk about how they fixed it, we need to clarify some of the jargon here. What exactly are HL7 V2 and FHIR? Because they sound like robot models.
They do. Okay, so think of HL7V2 as the old, incredibly complex dialect that healthcare systems have used to speak to each other since the 1980s.
So it's super clunky.
Very clunky and rigid. Now, FHIR, which stands for Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources, is the modern standard. It's essentially the universal USB-C port for healthcare data.
Ah, okay, I like that analogy.
Yeah, it allows old databases to package their clinical data securely so that modern cloud-based apps can read it instantly and perfectly.
Okay, so you have GPs using the old 1980s dialect and specialists needing the modern USB-C connection. But let me put my CEO hat on for a second here.
Go for it.
If I have a massive, clunky legacy system that is central to my operations, doesn't integrating it mean I have to undergo a catastrophic multi-million-dollar rip-and-replace migration? Because, that means downtime, retraining my entire staff, and just massive risk.
That fear of the rip and replace is exactly the misconception that holds organizations hostage to manual processes. But it introduces what we can call pattern 1, middleware as the intelligence layer.
Middleware.
You do not have to replace your core legacy systems. In the RHealth example, C9 didn't touch the GP's clinical system, and they didn't replace the specialist platform. Instead, they built an invisible, intelligent layer right between them.
Like hiring a highly skilled UN translator to sit in the room.
Exactly.
So the GP can keep speaking their native legacy language, the specialist can speak modern FHIR, and the middleware translator instantly and flawlessly converts the medical records in real time between them.
That's spot on. This middleware manages the complex bidirectional workflows. It handles message queuing, so nothing gets lost if a server blinks.
Which happens all the time.
Right, and it ensures total data security. It saves millions of dollars, completely avoids operational downtime, and delivers a transformative outcome using the infrastructure you have already paid for.
That is a massive relief for any executive dreading an IT migration nightmare. But, healthcare integration goes way beyond just translating data formats. Let's look at the Monash Health case study.
Oh, that's a fascinating one.
They're one of Victoria's largest public health networks, and they found themselves without a functional triage management system after a previous vendor's development project just entirely failed.
Leaving them in a very dangerous position.
Completely.
Yeah.
They were suddenly processing an overwhelming volume of incoming specialist referrals via high-volume faxes and legacy messaging, with just no structured way to track patients.
And the clinical governance risk in that scenario is astronomical, especially with those new Privacy Act penalties looming. So C9 had to step in and orchestrate a complete rescue.
What did that actually look like?
What was required was a highly secure triage management system built from the ground up that could integrate directly with that fire hose of incoming faxes and legacy messages.
But wait, hold on. How does software actually integrate with a fax? I mean, a fax is just a dumb image file, right? How does a modern system read a messy PDF from a doctor and turn it into actionable patient data?
That is where advanced integration architecture comes in. It's not just catching the image file. The system utilizes specialized parsing engines and optical character recognition, or OCR, to read the unstructured document.
Okay, so it scans the image.
Exactly. It identifies the patient's name, their Medicare details, the clinical urgency, and securely maps that raw text into structured, searchable database fields automatically.
So it's literally reading the document and doing the data entry for you.
Yes, completely autonomously. And beyond that, C9 built in multi-role patient tracking. This uses complex state machine logic so that clinical staff, administrative workers, and hospital management all have separate, customized dashboards.
So no one is stepping on each other's toes.
Right. Everyone sees exactly what they have the clearance to see, moving the patient through triage seamlessly.
Wow. So we've solved the compliance and risk problem. But, beyond avoiding fines and clinical disasters, proper integration fundamentally changes the speed of a business.
It changes the entire operational tempo.
Exactly. It changes the speed at which a C-level executive can actually make a decision. So I want to shift gears and talk about moving from retrospective reporting to real-time visibility.
This is where you see the direct financial ROI of getting your architecture right. Consider trades, engineering, and construction businesses.
Lots of moving parts out in the field.
Endless moving parts. Typically, timesheets, rostered days off, and physical expense receipts exist in entirely separate software universes.
Right.
So management is forced to manually export and assemble all this raw data just to understand if a project is actually profitable.
And that takes us straight to the SES portal case study. They are a national electrical contractor. And if their leadership team wanted to know their profit and loss on a major job, it required hours of an administrator's time, just gathering data manually from the field.
Hours just to see where they stood.
Right. And that means the financial information reaching the C-suite was inherently retrospective. You're basically looking in the rearview mirror trying to steer the company.
Which is a terrible way to drive.
Completely. But C9 built them a custom management portal that natively integrated their timesheets, RDOs, and expenses directly into their active operational workflows. Suddenly, their P&L reporting went from taking hours to completing in absolute seconds.
It turns a weekly retrospective autopsy into a live operational instrument. And, we see a similar transformation in the manufacturing and distribution sector. Take Tranix equipment.
Oh, yeah, this is a great example.
They had incredibly valuable KPI data buried deep within their business operations, but it wasn't consolidated and it wasn't surfaced in a timely way.
Just stuck in the mud.
Exactly. So C9 engineered a custom web dashboard that integrated directly with their core data infrastructure, giving leadership a near real-time KPI overview with an automated 5-minute refresh cycle.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate again here because this sounds a bit risky to me.
How so?
Well, if you attach a live, highly complex analytical dashboard directly to a company's active production database,
Yes.
the database that is currently trying to run the warehouse and process sales, right?
Mhm.
And you are hitting refresh every 5 minutes. Aren't you going to cause a massive computational bottleneck? Like, aren't you going to slow down or crash the system for the people actually trying to do the work?
That is an excellent, sophisticated question, and the answer is yes.
Yes. Okay, so it does break things.
If you engineer it poorly, direct live queries will absolutely cripple a business. When a dashboard runs a massive analytical query to compile KPIs, it can place what are called table locks on the database.
Table.
Yeah. It basically freezes the data so it can be counted accurately, which means the warehouse worker scanning a barcode or the sales rep processing an order gets a frozen screen.
Right, which completely defeats the purpose of upgrading your tech in the first place.
Yeah.
So how do you get real-time insights without freezing the business?
This brings us to pattern 2, data warehousing. To prevent slowing the underlying production system, C9 builds an intelligent warehousing layer.
Okay, explain that for me.
Think of the live database as a really busy intersection. A massive KPI query is like a parade marching right through the middle of it, stopping all the regular traffic.
Nobody wants a parade during rush hour.
Exactly. So the data warehouse is like building a separate stadium just for the parade.
So you are duplicating the data.
You are safely aggregating and normalizing the data on a scheduled cycle, like that 5-minute refresh.
Yes.
The executive dashboard queries the separate warehouse, not the live production database.
Okay, but if I'm a business owner looking at my budget, I might push back and say, isn't a data warehouse just me paying to build another box to fix the problem with my other boxes? Like, why do I need it?
Because that box acts as a critical operational insulator. It protects the heartbeat of your business, which is your transactional database, while still giving the brain of your business, the C-suite, the real-time data it needs.
So you can actually manage operations proactively.
Exactly, rather than managing by exception based on yesterday's disasters.
That structural separation makes total sense. Now let's scale this up even further, because the complexity goes completely through the roof when you stop dealing with a single office and start dealing with international borders or national fleets.
Oh, absolutely. The scale changes everything.
And this is exactly why 2026 is rapidly becoming a make-or-break competitive tipping point.
It truly is. When organizations merge or operate globally, they produce technology environments that require immediate custom intervention. Look at Atkins Global. They're a major engineering firm serving colossal clients like BHP and Rio Tinto.
Right, huge operations.
Following a corporate merger, their critical ERP system, which acts as the digital spinal cord of a company, was physically and logically relocated to the United Kingdom.
Wait, their enterprise resource planning software was moved across the world. That must have completely broken their local Australian billing and reporting capabilities.
It did.
Because, UK software doesn't natively understand Australian local tax codes or our reporting compliance or our financial workflows. Their local teams suddenly had no viable pathway to the data they needed to function.
Exactly. So a custom web portal had to be developed that integrated directly from the Australian operational teams into that UK-based ERP. That's Pattern 5, cross-border ERP integration.
You definitely can't just plug a generic tool into an international network like that.
No way. It requires deep, specialized knowledge of data sovereignty, cross-border latency management, and enterprise-grade security protocols to ensure queries happen instantly without timing out across the globe.
And then you have operational models that span an entire continent physically. One School Global is a perfect example of what the sources call Pattern 4, mobile and web working in concert.
Yes, managing student transport across a massive national school network.
Right. There is no off-the-shelf sauce product for their highly specific needs. They needed to track moving vehicles in real time, update parents instantly, and give central administrators a cohesive national operational picture.
Which means they didn't just need one piece of software. They needed 3 custom applications working simultaneously.
3.
Yeah. An in-vehicle tablet app handling live GPS tracking for the drivers, a mobile app for parents to receive push notifications about delays, and an administrative web dashboard to oversee the entire fleet.
The underlying architecture to make that seamless is just mind-blowing. How do you keep 3 separate apps perfectly synchronized when buses are driving through, like, cellular dead zones in the outback.
It requires highly resilient APIs and real-time event streaming, often using technologies like WebSockets. It means when the bus tablet regains a signal, it instantly pushes its cached location data to the central cloud.
So it remembers where it was.
Yes, and that immediately triggers a push notification to the parent's phone while simultaneously moving the little bus icon on the administrator's map. All of it tightly integrated, sharing live data continuously without overlapping or crashing.
And what's wild is that this scale of transformation isn't some rare isolated event anymore. We are seeing a tidal wave of investment. Gartner forecasts that Australian public cloud spending will hit 26.6 billion Australian dollars in 2025.
The momentum is incredible.
It is. Microsoft literally just committed $5 billion to expand hyperscale cloud and AI infrastructure right here in Australia. And as of late 2024, 40% of Australian SMEs had already adopted AI technologies into their workflows.
The pace of that adoption is accelerating at breakneck speed. I mean, the National AI Center actually noted a 5 percentage point jump in SME AI adoption in a single quarter.
And larger enterprises, those with 500 plus employees, are showing a 60% adoption rate of automation. 60%. So let me ask you, are we officially past the early adopter phase here? Because it sounds like this is just baseline table stakes now.
Oh, without a doubt, we are past the early adopters.
Yeah.
And if we connect this to the bigger macroeconomic picture we started with, this is exactly why 2026 is the pivotal tipping point.
Because everyone else is catching up.
Exactly. The businesses that invested in custom integration and structural automation 3 to 5 years ago are now operating with compounding advantages. They make faster decisions, they operate with significantly lower overheads, and their processes don't break down when a key employee goes on leave.
Right, because their systems are actually talking to each other.
Yes. If a business enters 2026 still relying on human staff to move data by hand between disconnected systems, still waiting on manual Excel reports to understand their P&L, they aren't just holding steady.
They're sinking.
In a market where competitors are fully integrated, they are fundamentally falling behind. Integration is no longer an IT department project. It is a foundational C-level business strategy.
That is the perfect summary. It is a foundational strategy that directly dictates your ability to survive and compete. So what does this all mean for you listening today? The core takeaway is incredibly simple. Stop tolerating the financial cost, the compliance risk, and the sheer operational drag of disconnected systems.
It's just not worth it anymore.
No, it's not. The manual workflows you accept as just the way things are quietly draining billions in productive hours across our economy. So, if your organization is hitting these exact bottlenecks, it is time to take deliberate action.
And that's where C9 comes in.
Exactly. C9 is Australia's leading custom software, apps, integration, and database developer company. They have been solving these exact, highly complex architectural problems for Australian organizations across healthcare, government, finance, and manufacturing for over 18 years.
They really know what they're doing.
They absolutely do. Your immediate next step is to start a no-obligation discovery conversation to find out exactly what custom automation and precision integration can realistically deliver for your unique business logic. Head over to their website at www.c9.com.au. That's www.diecc9.com/.a.
And you know, that discovery process is incredibly pragmatic. It's designed to assess your specific friction points, identify the right architectural pattern.
Like the middleware or the data warehouse we talked about.
Exactly. Whether that is a middleware translator, a protective data warehouse, or a complex mobile web ecosystem, they'll produce a clear scope of work that enhances rather than disrupts the legacy infrastructure that is already working for you.
Spot on. Before we wrap up, please remember to hit that follow button on the podcast platform you're using right now. And share this deep dive with your peers, your CTO, or anyone in your professional network who could benefit from closing their own integration gap.
I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. If your biggest competitor perfectly integrated all their systems tomorrow, achieving 30% lower costs and true real-time decision-making, how long would your current manual processes allow you to stay in the game?